You know that song, More Than Words? Gosh, I hope your culture is just more than words. More than words on a wall, more than words in a handbook, more than words on a website. More than words. How is your culture showing up, living and breathing every single day? Food for thought. My name's Shirley Smith, and I am your culture curator.
What has time told you about the power of friendship in your life? Hi, I'm Trevi A. McDonald, author of the novel Time Will Tell, a coming-of-age story about the power of friendship in the lives of 3 Chicago women who are attending their 10-year high school reunion, and the sequel, Roundabout Midnight, a story about resolving issues, healing hurts, and celebrating Black love. You can find out more about my books at my website, www.drtrevi.com. Thank you.
At Shirley Luu and Associates, powered by First Financial Security, our mission is to help all people achieve financial security and peace of mind.
My team and I are here to help you reach financial security tomorrow and for generations to come.
She is one of the most sincere and compassionate people that I will ever meet in my life. She sincerely wants to build a legacy where no young woman that she meets is left destitute, that they are able to be self-sufficient, to provide for a family in an emergency, to build for their future and for our future generations.
At Shirley Luu and Associates, we are changing the face of insurance and retirement plans. Our mission is to lead, empower, and grow. We are the home of tax-free retirement. We provide comprehensive planning for businesses, rollovers for retirees, and individual personal financial planning.
I'm a very people-oriented person. It's important for me to make sure my clients feel in a safe environment, make sure I feel in a safe environment, that I can trust the people that I'm working with. And I feel that here working with Shirley and my team. These people are more like family to me.
Shirley has donated time and resources to the Shelter House, Women of Good Works, Good 360, Women That Soar, local churches, and the Lisa Initiative. The Lisa Initiative helps inform, educate, and empower women and their families' financial security. We believe entrepreneurship is a possibility for all walks of life.
Reach out to us. We would love to have a conversation to see how we can help.
That's right. It's the Shirley Lou Show. And of course, she's always got amazing guests and amazing folks that are associated with her that come on and give us their story of how they got involved in the financial planning lane and all in that kind of way. And we've got another amazing guest. And of course, we're getting ready to talk to Sharon Scroggins and learn more about how she got involved in this lane and a number of other things as well. I know a number of people have probably been paying attention to a lot of things going around the world, whether it is what is happening there in Ukraine with that continued Russian invasion, now about to go into its, well, actually in the middle of its second year and all in that space. And a lot of people are admiring the resiliency and the courage of the Ukrainians fighting against this tyrant action and all in that space. And of course, a lot of folks are paying attention to our own local and national politics, whether that is what is going on up there in New York with the indictment of former President Trump or a number of other things that are happening. And of course, a lot of people were paying attention these last couple of days to basketball. Basketball is definitely a very important sport that a lot of people enjoy, and it definitely is one that folks were paying attention to, whether it is the women's game that took place on Sunday night and had LSU be the champion in that space, or whether it was the game on yesterday for the men's side that had Connecticut win. And one of the things when I think of Kansas, I think of basketball. So that is one of the things and one of the reasons that I brought that up, because I know that Sharon is from Kansas, and we do know that Kansas has won a number of those championships. And who knows, she might be a basketball fan and maybe even a fan of Kansas, which has definitely won many championships, as well as given us one of our past coaches, because definitely Roy Williams, who was the coach of UNC for a number of years, came from Kansas. And of course, I'm here in Durham, which is home to Duke University, and formerly was coached by Coach K. And now they have new leadership and all in that space. And it'll be interesting to see whether Sharon is a sports fan and whether she even caught any of the games or not. So that is one of the things when I think of Kansas that automatically comes to my mind is the whole nature of it being a sports place, particularly in the basketball lane. And of course, we do know that y'all can also get some very rough weather as well. As a matter of fact, I know that one of the adjacent states, that being Oklahoma, is expecting some possible tornadoes, and they might even be coming your way. And of course, many people do remember that classic movie, The Wizard of Oz, which of course was set there in Kansas and in that space. And of course, there was a tornado featured in that as well. So Sharon, how are you doing today? And are you one of those folks that was following the sport of basketball, or is that something that you avoided, or is it something that you actually were involved in? Because like I said, when I think of Kansas, those are two of the things that automatically come to my mind is the Wizard of Oz, and of course, the legendary runs of many of your basketball championships.
Hello, Mark. I'm doing pretty good today. And yes, I'm not a big fan of sports, but I do watch it. I'm more on the betting side. Mm-hmm. So I like to play and it's kind of cool to watch it. We had kind of like a little small poll, right, with me and some friends. And it was interesting that one of the people in the play in it, when he was sitting there making his bracket, he's like, I don't know anything about, sports, basketball or anything. I said, well, just pick all the losers. And so out of 10 of us, he won because he picked all the losers. And because all of us, we went against Kansas, a lot of us went for KU. Some of us went for K-State, and both of them were knocked out, So it was interesting how he won the bet.
He won the bet and had that strategy of picking the losers and all along those lines. So that was definitely something that happened. Sometimes people will pick based on the colors. I do know that there were a lot of brackets that were busted, and they were even saying that the team that won was probably the strongest of the four in the Final Four, but there was definitely no doubt that they were definitely one of those. This was a Final Four that I don't think anybody had in their brackets. If they told me that they had Florida Atlantic or some of those other ones, including San Diego, I'm going to wonder what they were drinking or some of the other things that were going on, because that just seems to be pure luck if that was the case. But I think that there was been a history of no perfect brackets, and it seems like that is the case again, that anybody that picked this Final Four, I'm going to be really wondering about them and all in that space. But
oh yeah, definitely. If anyone picked Florida Atlantic, I was going to have to research why, because
exactly.
They came out of nowhere. I mean, but that's what's cool about the NCAA, you know, that they get together and the administrators pick who are going to win and everything, and it could be all wet, and it turned out to be all wrong. I know. I mean, because what, UK, they were like number 5 or 4.
They were number 4, I believe. I think San Diego was number 5.
And then San Diego was way down there on the list. So, I mean, that was pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good match. And I know a lot of people were also paying attention to the women's game as well. Of course, there's been all kinds of things on social media about the taunting or not taunting, but I was thinking that most players were taunting during the entire tournament. So there's a lot of back and forth taunting that goes on, whether it's on the men's side or the women's side. So definitely that was a great game, and definitely Miss Clark is a great offensive player, but definitely she came out on the losing end in that last game, but it was still a fun game and definitely a closer game than the men's game. So it was very much of a back and forth battle, and definitely was fun to watch. I think I watched more of that than I did the men's game, just because of my own work schedule and everything. But it was definitely a fun game to watch. And I don't know if you caught any of the women's game, but the women's game has gotten a lot better. And some people would say that it is more traditional in the sense of playing by the regular rules and everything than even the men's game, which can be very much highlight reel and more about the sensational side, even though the women can get sensational with some of their shots and some of the things that they are doing as well. As I was saying, the other thing that comes to my mind when I think of Kansas is, of course, that lovely weather, because that was the theme of The Wizard of Oz. And of course, we all remember both The Wizard of Oz and its remake, The Wiz, and a number of other films that have been Wizard of Oz based. So growing up, was that something that you were aware of, that part of the timeline and part of the lore of Kansas? And also, is that something that you grew up around in the sense of being in the rural part of Kansas and also dealing with some of that weather? And what was that experience like for you? Because like I said, oftentimes when I think of Kansas, Oklahoma, I think of it being a rural part of the country, but also very much a bad weather that goes through there, whether that's those tornadoes or other things that happen in that space.
Yes, definitely. We're definitely noted for our tornadoes. And, you know, I'm born and raised here, and I've yet to even witness a tornado in person. I'm the one that's out there standing in the middle of the yard watching, and I've yet to see one. But yeah, we're experiencing quite a bit of wind today. It's probably like 30 or 40 miles. I mean, I've got my window cracked here a little bit in my office, and I can definitely hear it. So, but it's beautiful here. It's like 78 degrees, but the wind is howling, let me tell you. I've never really been affected much by tornadoes. I do know I'm from like the Wichita area, and our little suburb Andover, it's kind of on the east side. It's been hit a couple of times. And the last time that it was hit, just like about a year and a half ago, I was in San Diego and I missed it. You know, and then when it got hit back in the 90s, you know, I was at my family. I had an aunt and uncle that lived there. And so we heard about it. We lived up in kind of the northern portion of Wichita. And when we were able to, you know, when everything kind of got cut down and everything, we kind of snuck in the back way and kind of had to walk probably a couple miles to get in so we can go check on our family. But, you know, they did really well. They had some roof damage. They were like right next to a trailer park that was totally wiped out, but they were pretty much okay. They had some roof damage and that was it. It was just really strange how, you know, the path of the tornado, you know, so.
Yeah, that's very much the case. Those paths can be interesting and everything. It sounds to me like you're saying that if there was being one that you would actually be there, that you might be the adventuristic type that would be trying to sit there and get a picture or trying to get a glimpse of it, even though there are some folks that say that the first thing you're supposed to do is duck for cover or get out of the way. But it does sound like, from what I'm hearing you say, that you might be trying to get a glimpse of the tornado. Hopefully we're not going to have you get whisked off in the way of the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy and everything.
Yep, I'm right there with it. That's why it's like, I hear when I travel other ways, I say I'm from Kansas, and they're like, oh my gosh, all those tornadoes. And it's like, I've yet to see one. I've never seen one in person, So, but we live out on like the north side of town. I live in a real small town. We're on the north side of town, and so it's all pasture,
Right.
and so we got a really great glimpse of the sky. So when it does start happening, we can go out there and we can watch it and everything. But I've yet to see one, but I'm out there in the yard looking, so get more
looking,
on.
waiting to see that first one and everything. I know that one of the things that Shirley has been doing is definitely being involved in that insurance and the financial planning space and everything. And I'm imagining that that might have been part of what drew you to her and everything, because I do know that insurance for farmland and insurance for the crops is also an important part of what goes on. So I was wondering,
Yes,
is
it
that
is.
what drew you into the whole financial planning aspect? Because we do know that definitely having grown up in North Carolina, born here in Durham, North Carolina, but grew up many years of my development years in Warren County, which is Warrenton, which is definitely a rural town, and everything that, and my grandparents being farmers on my mom's side, and even having some cousins and uncles, that it is very important to guarantee the crop and also have some insurance on the crop, is also make sure that the people are insured as well. And we do know that part of what you do is retirement insurance. So how much of that conversation was what drew you into this field?
Well, actually, what drew me into the insurance business was COVID. I worked in the aircraft business as a buyer for aircraft parts for about 20 years. And because of the fact that, it's a feast or famine in aircraft, so you're either really doing great, it just kind of rolls with the economy. Well, of course, the COVID, all the stocks went down. They had to, tighten up their belt on the support people. And so I was one of those. And so when I got out, they gave me a really nice retirement package and everything, or, severance package, I should say. Right. And so I took that for gold, and I decided to go see what I could do, what else was out there available for me. And when I was checking all the jobs, everything was insurance. So I decided to go get my insurance license and give it a try. And I've done really well. I've been doing Medicare. But now, just recently, I moved over to be a independent with Medicare. And so that's allowed me to get into the financial planning of it, because part of the business in working with aircraft, you see the ups and downs, and you see a lot of people working in the manufacturing, and they're very dependent upon those weekly checks. And if they can get overtime, they're going to be making it, and then they're going to be, using their money however they can. But a lot of times, they don't see the downhill come. And then that's when they get into problems, And so once the downhill starts happening, they start laying off. Well, then they're sitting out there. They've got all these, car payments, boat payments, and whatever to make. And that puts a hurt on them, And so I learned early on that, you better take care of everything and make sure you've got it secured, and when you're working in aircraft, because you never know. One of my coworkers, in fact, he was always 6 months ahead on every one of his payments on everything he owed, utilities, gas, everything. And that's how he kept it, just to make sure that he was, not going to have to worry about when he got laid off, that he was going to have to, suffer through. And, a lot of people are dependent upon the pensions, and the pensions are good and everything, but it's still not going to get you through, because, with Social Security, they're saying like in the next 10 years or what have you, that, they're worried about it, so they're not going to be able to depend on that, and so by talking to people in Medicare, they're all like, I'm on fixed income for me to save them $20 and $30 a month, and they're excited about it. There's something wrong right there, so learning with the Medicare and, coming from aircraft and with the, concerns about Social Security, that's when I thought I can do something here. If I can, help my fellow employees from aircraft get those 401ks rolled over to, the annuities, to where they're going to be able to gain a heck of a lot more income during the retirement years, that's what I'm all about.
Sounds great and everything. A couple of things that you raised that I was curious about. One is what got you before getting into the financial planning into the aircraft industry, because we do know a lot of times buying parts, the only time we even think about the parts is when there is a disaster on the aircraft, and hopefully that doesn't happen too often, but we do know that it happens, and that's when they will investigate what was happening in the construction of the plane. But most of the time we're flying, we're just glad that the plane is construction that is able to move us from point A to point B and everything. So I was wondering, was it part of that love of buildings, well, not so much buildings, but vehicles that got you into the notion of aircraft equipment buying, or what was it that was interesting you to go into that field initially before getting into the space of insurance after the pandemic kind of pushed you into that direction? But what was it about the aircraft industry, that particularly buying aircraft parts, that was pulling you into that part of the field? And what degree does one get to buy aircraft equipment? Because I do know that locally there was somebody here in North Carolina that I ran across them while I was trying to find an art gallery or a photographer or something, and they actually were in an office downtown, and they were literally buying small planes, like those corporate type planes. So they were actually a corporate plane company that was based here in North Carolina. And I remember literally stumbling across them because they had a small office downtown, and I walked in looking for an art gallery, and they're like, "No, we sell planes." And I'm like, "You sell planes?" And they were like, "Yeah, we sell like those big corporate type planes." And of course, I have none of that kind of money, so it was a very quick visit that I had. But it was interesting learning about them and everything, that they were literally in the middle of my town. And I don't know if they're still here. I think the company is, but I don't know if they're still in that downtown location. But what got you into aircraft buying, particularly of the various equipment?
I liked doing the aircraft because it was different every day. I mean, you could have like an aircraft on ground that would need a part like ASAP, and you would have to do everything you could. You'd have to stop what you're doing and go do whatever to fill that requirement. And that happened quite a bit. I mean, there were several times that several people had to run a part to the airport and put it on an airplane and have it, flown out directly to the plane, wherever it was. Wow. And so I would take care of getting the material in the building and everything. And then, all the other support people would take care of actually getting it to the person, whether it be shipping internationally or just shipping locally, or actually putting on an aircraft, or even just, UPS and FedEx. It just kind of depends on the requirement. But I also worked in the government side of it, to where, we supported the T-6 aircraft, which there's quite a few air bases around the United States, like there's coming in Oklahoma and Florida and Georgia. All of those support the T-6 trainers and everything. And so when those went down, it was a pretty hot item. You had to get going on it. And then I also supported the sales of it, to where what we would do is we would take a couple trainers to international, like they would go to England, Morocco, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait. And so what we would have to do is we would have to get the pilot on board, we get the planes, and we would actually have to ship a big, huge shipment of spare parts to go along with the plane. So this way, if they had any issues, breakages while they're international, they had a supply, they had a mechanic with them, and they had a supply of spare parts. And so I was able to support them as well.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Now, did you get into this through the military, or was it an academic thing that got you into?
It was just academic. I got my degree, and I was in supply chain. And so that's what got me into the aircraft and everything. So,
Wow, that's really fascinating. Now, I know a lot of people have been talking about the new industry that you're in, or the part that you're in now with Shirley and everything, about the concerns, and you mentioned that earlier, around retirement planning and particularly around the future. And you just kind of alluded to it earlier of Medicaid and Social Security. I do know that one of the founders of Pod TV, who is a pension attorney by trade, and Nick Valveda, oftentimes on a lot of our shows will talk about the fact that Medicaid may be going insolvent by the year 2030 or something along those lines. And definitely we heard that from some of our politicians as well. So I just wondered how much of that has been a concern from what you are hearing, and is this something that is part of the planning that you do, is getting people to look at to the future of these programs that have been around for a number of years?
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of rumbling from my peers about, Social Security, and I do know for many years, it's been a concern, and they've increased the, like, for me, I'm gonna have to wait till I'm 67 before I draw the most amount of my Social Security, and that's discerning because all along I've been waiting until I was 65. But I do hear when I talk to people on the phone daily about Medicare, they are very concerned about that as well. Now, with these people, they're already getting Social Security. So as far as like they're concerned, I think they're pretty much probably going to be grandfathered in or what have you, since they're already getting it and everything. But, with us who are not, it's a big concern, And so when I talk to people about the IULs that we have and everything, yeah, it's a big concern. I mean, that's a pretty good selling point, and especially, the differences between, the differences between the 401k annual, income compared to the annuities and the IULs. It's dramatic, and people don't realize, how dramatic it is. And then I do know that, there are a lot of people concerned about the banking industry right now. I mean, the Silicon Valley, and then I think there's 2 others that have gone bankrupt recently. And so it's becoming a trend, and so that's, and all the 401ks, they're backed by that FDIC. If that FDIC is going to be bailing out or, at least helping with Silicon to kind of equalize their customers, it's going to take a hit. Whereas, the annuities and the IULs, they're not backed by the FDIC, and so it seems like it's more of a stable environment, because when was the last time you heard that an insurance company went bankrupt? I mean, these companies, they've been in business for over 100 years, and that's a lot of track record for them to survive, so it's a lot more stable type of account to have than a 401k.
That makes a lot of sense, and definitely people are trying to figure out that stability. You mentioned, retirement. I do know a number of folks are concerned about retirement. I'm actually going to hit the big 6-1 in July, and I know that historically 6-5 or something like that would be considered retirement. But even in one of the other jobs I have, less of the Pod TV and the live streaming space, but one of the grading companies that I work for, there are some folks that are working well into their 80s and 90s, grading some of these school test papers and all in that space. But is that something that you are also seeing, is that people are thinking about their retirement planning, but also are thinking about it further down the road? Because we know a number of people are retiring later, even though sometimes you are forced into retirement, maybe even before you are wanting to retire. I know that my mom, who was a major philanthropist in the area, worked for a trust fund, the Golden Lease Foundation, was actually their first president and everything, but she also served on the board of what is now Truist. And I remember that when she was at a certain age, I want to say it was like around 65 or 70, they pretty much said that she had to retire because they had a retirement age, and once you hit that age, you had to resign from that board and everything. So a resignment age, I guess it would be, since you weren't really working per se for the bank, you were working for the board of the bank and everything. But that was a conversation, because at that time we were like, and even now, Mom is very much a person that still has all of her faculties, knock on wood, and all of that, but is very much involved in the community of Rocky Mountain in the sense of family and things of that nature, not so much the politics and work that she used to do, but still very involved and could probably still give the bank advice to this day. But even at that time, they had those kind of rules, but we do know that people are working later and later. So how has that conversation been going with your clients and everything? Because some of them are probably going like, yeah, I want to get some retirement planning and I want to get some retirement planning, but I'm not planning to retire till I'm 80, maybe 85.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actually, the younger kids, they're looking at early retirement, so these Kaizen plans and annuities, they're very attractive to them and everything. So, when I show it to them, they're like all excited about it and everything. But, on the flip side, my parents, both of them, they had to retire early, probably like in their 50s because of their health, and so that wasn't good. And my in-laws, my mother-in-law, she started getting Parkinson's, and so she had to retire early. My father-in-law, because of the fact that he was getting close and it was getting, the economy was getting there, his health was okay, except for the fact that insurance was a big deal because he worked kind of for a smaller company. And because of the restraints that his wife was putting on all of the health insurance for them, it was better for them to buy him out and retire him early than, just continue to have him on. And so they gave him a really nice severance package to retire him out. And I thought that was really odd. This day and age, insurance, you should be covered. But, with them being a small company, yeah, there was costing them a lot of money, and rates were going up and everything. Insurance is just a lot of money. So I know that my husband and I, that's a major concern for us, because we probably got like another 10 years of employment. And, that's our major concern. How are we going to cover our medical coverage until then, And so we're going to have to figure out how to get the annuity to where we're going to be able to afford it, and this late in the age, we're not going to be able to do it. We're going to have to work out until we're 65, 67, So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and is a concern that a number of people are having. You mentioned having a relative that had Parkinson's, and I was just wondering how difficult it is for folks that are dealing with those two kind of ailments to get insurance if they are thinking about insurance or things along those lines. As you were talking, I was thinking about relatives that I have that have MS and some that have even passed of things like Alzheimer's and other diseases that are out there. So is it something that is still able to be obtained, or does these kind of life-threatening and definitely life-altering, because most of them are, what we're talking about, are terminal in one aspect or another and everything. But how difficult is it to get insurance if you're dealing with these kind of ailments? And are there some efforts out there that can help folks that are facing these kind of health issues?
Yeah, it's hard because insurance is pricey. And then furthermore, they're not supposed to look at their health anymore, but I know that that's a concern, but it's still pricey for them. And it gets to the point where they're going to have to pay the higher cost of insurance just to keep themselves covered until all their assets are depleted. And at that point, they're going to have to go on Medicaid, And so once they determine that they're not able to work anymore, that puts them onto disability. Well, still, they're going to have to be on disability for 24 consecutive months before they're going to be able to get Medicare Part A and B, if they're prior to 65. Right. That's still a long time for someone who is facing a lot of health issues. They're not able to cover it. And so, unfortunately, their assets get depleted fairly quick. Yeah. And then that's when it lands on the state, and it's a shame, because they're like, I either have to go on Medicaid and lose my family home that's been in our family for over 100 years, because I have to, because it's like, I can't handle it, and that's what they do. Medicaid, when they look at your assets and they'll put liens on it. It's really sad.
And that's one of the things I was curious about, even with generational wealth, because I do know that whether you're in a rural area or some of the other communities, that is a conversation that a lot of people have been talking about. And I'm thinking that there is a lot of what is considered middle America and everything, and definitely Kansas and Oklahoma are considered that and everything, where people have had farms in their family for a number of years. Sometimes they are bought out by corporate farms, and sometimes they keep that farmland. But I imagine that that is part of the retirement conversations that you've been having as well, because I'm imagining that there are quite a few people in Wichita and a number of other states, cities in that state that are concerned about how they are going to protect the land that has been in their family for a number of decades. So just wondering how those conversations are going and what you are learning from your clients in that space, because I imagine some of them are wanting to pass on that farmland to their kids, and maybe the kids want to go off and do something totally unrelated to farming. I know that I had a friend in the C area of Wilmington, and they actually did a newspaper story on him, and that's one of the things that he was learning about, because he was actually an artist, and he was talking to those fishermen in Wilmington, and some of them were like, we want to pass the fishing business off to our children, and they're looking at us like, no, we've seen what y'all have done for the last 2 or 3 generations. We've seen how hard of work that is. Not really trying to do that. I think I'll go off into computers or something else. But
yeah, I've talked to several people that they're in that same position. They've had their land and their home for many years, and it's generational. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Children are not wanting to take on because they've seen it. I mean, it's hard that, children right now, the renting business in downtown Wichita is really booming because the millennium people, they just want to rent places. They don't want to buy. They don't want to get in a mortgage, like what we had back in 2008. Mm-hmm. They're scared of that. They're not wanting to buy. And so they're happy and content with renting, And so for them to have these nice assets with their, their parents having the home and their land and everything. And it's getting to the point where someone's in the family is going to have to help them to get them over the hump or just sell it, And I do know that around here, with me living in a small town, I'm west Wichita, there's a lot of farmland starting to fill up. I mean, it's filling up really quick. Mm-hmm. There's these new developments, that used to be farmland, and now it's turning into homes, Mm-hmm. I mean, homes they're getting expensive, and I don't know how people are affording them, but they are. But it's booming still, even with the economy being like it is. So.
Yep. And I was wondering, the other thing I mentioned, what people think about when they think of Kansas, and definitely one of the things they think about is, like I said earlier, the Wizard of Oz, but there was also some adjacent states that people think about as well. And some of those were definitely famous for their insurance commercials. So I was just wondering how much of that Mutual of Omaha, which Nebraska isn't that far from Kansas, and everything played into your own going into this particular field and everything. Because I do remember watching that commercial even as a youngster and everything. And definitely, even though it was about wildlife, you would always hear that particular commercial. So, and then of course there are some other ones that are out there as well. And definitely Shirley Luu is doing a great job with her company, but there are some that are more the commercial ones that people hear about because they have intensive advertising, whether that's Mutual or whether that's Aflac or a number of other ones as well, because who among us have not run across that crazy duck and everything. So how much of that has played into your thinking that this was a field that you wanted to go into?
Now, the Mutual of Omaha, I am licensed to go ahead and do supplemental plans with them and everything, mm-hmm. but I haven't really dabbled much into their life insurance or any other type of products that they have. And with me signing on with FFS, with Shirley Luu, right. She has handpicked several different companies mm-hmm. that, she's reviewed all the policies on them, and she's rated them the best. Right. And so she's just concentrated on that, which has been great, because with me kind of being new to the annuity business and everything, it really helped me learn a lot about the differences, because with me having access to the Mutual of Omaha, I've gone out there and I've kind of looked at what they've had, compared to what we have here at FFS. And I kind of see where she's going at. She's got she's phenomenal when it comes to finances. Her heart is in it. And you can really tell that she's in it for, she makes so much money. And for her to sit there and put her time and effort on every one of every agent that she has underneath her, regardless of where they're at. It's phenomenal how she's been doing it. But, she does podcasts she does Zoom meetings, I should say, every week. to do trainings for us. So this way it helps us learn a lot quicker. And so I sit in those meetings quite a bit with her, and I've learned so much from her. And many times I've sent her an email thinking, okay, I'll give her a day. Within 20 minutes, she's called me up and she goes, this is what's the best one for your customer, and she's told me, this and this. And she's just phenomenal with everything that she's got going on her day. And with her calling me in 20 minutes later about my question, I mean, she's wonderful. But I trust her because, those ones that she every week, she'll pick like a certain plan that she likes. And she'll go in there and she'll dissect it for us. So this way, it's kind of a way to train us and everything. So we learn and we'll kind of know what we need to pinpoint and everything. So this way, when we are out talking to customers and everything, we can kind of pick up on what they're looking for and say, okay, this way, I know this one's the best, And so I still get with her and Jim and Elizabeth and kind of run it through. Okay, this is what I'm seeing. Am I okay? Or, and so they'll go ahead and they'll straighten me out and everything. But I mean, they're a wealth of knowledge, all three of them, and I value that, especially with me new coming on. It's been very great. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it. What advice would you give to others that were thinking about going into the insurance space or thinking about working with either Shirley Luu or just the insurance space in general?
We need a lot of agents because of everything that's going on in the world. They are begging for agents to come in and help us because the more people that know about it, the more people that sell it, they have their own network of people, and the word needs to get out that, the 401ks is not going to be something that is going to get you through your 22 years average retirement. You're going to have something else. And, with the Social Security being like it is, we're all concerned about that. Yes, that's great. You have two avenues, but considering the differences between the 401ks and annuities, I talked to someone last week and they were looking at $8,000 annually on what they have in their 401k, and they still had 15 more years to go. But that's still a long span. They've been in that 401k for a good while, right? Yeah. I gave them the information about an annuity, and it was going to get them $44,000 annually.
Wow. What is something that has surprised you about what you have learned about the insurance business and particularly working in insurance that you were not expecting? And what are some commonalities that you have found between the insurance business and the notion of buying airline parts and airplane parts?
Mm-hmm. Well, airline parts, those are for like the wealthy, because the people that I was selling to, they were owners. They weren't the big commercial ones. These were small, 10-seater aircraft, and so we sold to like the military and individuals, and so it's a different ball game right there. The customers were there. But, now that I'm in insurance, I'm talking to everybody, individuals that, don't have a lot of assets going on and everything. And so, Shirley was talking about in her book about the differences between the 401ks and the IULs. Well, the 401ks, with them being backed by the bankers, and they're backed by Wall Street, and with the employers having a say on the investments, because what they're going to do is they're going to pull them over to their stock. That's where the most of the gains are going to be. That's what they want to do, to support their business with all the employees' 401ks. Well, there's better business out there because the annuities and the IULs, they go off the S&P. That's got a lot of different diverse types of companies in it and everything. They got tech, they got manufacturers, they got metals, they got every other type of business in there. Whereas, the 401ks, they kind of move them and sway them to where the company is, Well, if you're in the aircraft, there's peaks and valleys. So when you're peaking, you're peaking. But when you're in the valley, you're in the valley, And 401ks, they actually do lose money. Whereas the IULs and the annuities, they don't. They have a floor. If that S&P loses within that year, their account stays the same. If they gain, then they gain, and that's the brand new floor. They start going up again. And, going off of the industry in the last 10 years, S&P has only lost one time.
Yeah.
And today they're up above where they've lost. I mean, so they've already regained it. It didn't even hardly phase them at all. So maybe for 1 year, but they still remain the same. They did not lose whatsoever.
How important is it to be in a field with somebody that is like-minded and everything? Because I know on some of the shows we've talked about that and everything, and I know that some of the folks that are working with Shirley, their spouses are in the same industry, and they sometimes have a great success in conversations that way. And in some cases, they're totally opposite fields and all in that space. So you did mention the husband and everything. So I was wondering, is he also in the financial lane? And is this something that you are hoping that your children will go into, or are you just hoping that they will be successful in whatever they go into, and have any of them expressed interest in going into the financial lane or possibly following in your footsteps?
Mm-hmm. My husband, he does work where I used to work because we used to work together. So he worked in the manufacturing part of it, where I was in the support people, so I'd go out and visit him every day, but that'd be it. But he's still in that space, he's still building the aircraft, he's out there doing it, but, he's getting older, and, his, body is not be able to crawl around on the middle of those bare, metal aircraft anymore. So I would like to get him retired sooner, so that's our little drive there. But he thinks it's great that, I'm able to help people and help them with their financial needs and everything. In fact, I've helped a couple of his coworkers. I sat down with them. I've showed them the difference between the 401ks and the IULs, and they're very impressed. We're helping our children because we have 3 children, and they're all in their 30s, and they're all doing really well. But, each one of them have 401ks and IRAs and Roths and everything. And so I'm trying to show them the way, but they're looking at Mom. Okay, you haven't been doing this very long. So I'm going to have to kind of gain my speed and show them, okay, I've done this. Now will you, and then they'll sit down with me. But that's one of my goals. I'm going to get them, but luckily they listened to me when they first got in it. And I told them, I said, you guys need to start saving for your retirement now. It's easier. And every one of them have listened. And so they're starting. It just, in a year, I'll get them turned. I'll show them the way. And but also I have 2 grandchildren. And so I'm going to go ahead and start getting them moved on these annuities and IULs. So this way, when they turn 27, they can either take it over themselves, or they can go ahead and cash it out and do whatever they want with it. But, can you imagine at age 27 being able to get an annual income and just coming out of college with no job?
And that would be great. Nice? That would be real nice. I remember that when my grandmother was living, there was a real effort to get kids like savings bonds and some of those other things. I don't know if banks still put them out the way that they used to and everything, but there was definitely that push to make sure that you had some sort of protected savings that were there in that space. Because I definitely remember that. I think that was Dad's mom that set that up and everything, but I do remember that they existed, and at some point in my adulthood, we cashed it out. There was probably some sort of family situation that needed a quick payment, and it was used in that space. But I was just wondering, is that something that you were doing with the grandkids, and is that something that you are seeing more people do? Because I also remember a time, and I'm not saying that I always had one, don't even know if I had one at all, but a number of my friends definitely had allowances and all in that space. And I'm not even sure that parents are given allowances these days. But how much of the early financial planning are you seeing when you are talking to your clients, and how much planning is there going into buying things, whether that is a savings bond or some of the other kinds of bank existed things that you could put out there to protect the kids as they grow older, and it can be there for a financial windfall or emergency nest eggs or things along those lines. Because like I said, I'm not even sure that parents are giving allowances out like they used to.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of parents having like a little savings account for their kids,
Right.
you know, like whenever they get money for Christmas or birthdays or what have you, they'll put like 50% in there. You know, I see a lot of that going on, but, you know, I see a lot of people just pretty much kind of taking care of themselves right now because they're really concerned about it and they don't really have a whole lot of means on it, you know? And so by them, that's another good thing with the annuities and the IULs. They've got a built-in life insurance.
Right.
So once that happens, there's going to be money. And that's where the generation wealth really happens. Like the annuities that my husband and I have, you know, that's definitely going to be helping. It's going to feed down to my grandkids, definitely, you know, because it's going to be sufficient amount. You know, the 3 kids are going to be fine, but then there's still going to be, you know, money left over for my grandkids, you know. So I think it's a great thing. But, you know, as far as like bonds and everything, I know my husband's grandma would always give all of her grandchildren bonds for Christmas and birthdays and such. And so when we got together, it didn't amount to hardly anything. I mean, even though they had matured and everything, you might as well just put them in a savings account, you know? So I didn't see a whole lot of growth there, you know, but, you know, if they take that same amount of money monthly and put it in just like an account, you know, for like an annuity account for their grandchildren, they're going to be so much better off, you know, doing that than just putting in a savings account. It's just the fact that the startup fund would be the issue right there, you know, because I think Gerber will allow you to go at a lower amount. But, you know, some of those other annuities, they make you start at a little bit higher amounts. And I know that's a problem for some people. So.
We have to love technology. Technology has a moment of its own in everything.
I think so.
Yeah, has a moment of its own in all in that space. But definitely, I know a lot of folks were enjoying the conversation, and that's not going to let us stop. We just keep on going because technology has a moment of its own and all along those lines. One of the things I was curious about, and you just mentioned it earlier during the course of our conversation, was do you think that people are paying enough attention to what is going on with insurance, particularly if they are in rural America? Because like I said, you are definitely there in Kansas. I know you're outside of Wichita, but there are a number of folks that are in that rural space. And I was just wondering, is this an area that you would like to see more people studying and even dealing with? Because I know that even our founders of this network, they are big on fiscal literacy, and they really wish that these kind of things would be taught in our school system and all in that space. But I was just wondering your thoughts around that, and if that's something that you would like to see more of as well.
Oh yes, I would love to have the insurance agent, industry grow, because a lot of people don't realize the more advantages they have with an insurance policy than they do, with the bank policies and everything. And I know that insurance is big in rural areas, like what you said for crops and everything. So yeah, because that is big business right there and everything. But as far as like other, types of, investments and everything, I don't think they're there yet. And you have to think, annuities and IULs, they've only been around for like a little bit more than 20 years. And so, it takes that much time for people to get in them, use them, and actually benefit from them. And then the word starts spreading. And I think right now we're at about the peak to where it's going to start spreading now. People are going to start saying, oh, yes, I was able to get, this income, and it was exactly what I was expecting and everything. Whereas, before in later years, they were talking about life insurance and everything. And life insurance itself gets a bad rap, because you can get a little bit of benefit here and there, but basically it's when you pass away is when the benefit happens. But then, with, all the Hollywoodization of it, the Hollywood stuff going on, it kind of gets a bad rap because people think, oh, they're going to fight it and everything. Well, for the most part, it's not fought, it's just more Hollywood being Hollywood. Right. But, it gives it a bad rap because there's not a lot of people that have those plans and everything. But now with, the IULs and the annuities coming of age and people are starting to benefit from them, I think it's going to start becoming, widely ranged. And that's the reason why, we're really needing more agents to get the word out, to talk to their networks, and start getting it moving, especially with the economy like it is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that some people are afraid to talk about insurance, just like they're afraid to talk about their plans for their immediate end of life and everything? Because we do know that there are very few guarantees in the world, but one guarantee is that just like we are born, we will die at some point or another. Even though I'm personally rooting for 200, even though nobody's personally done that. But like I said, and I don't know that I'm doing anything to actually do that because my exercise programs are nil to non-existent, and my diet plan involves way too much fast food. So definitely that's not going to actually be a way to get to 200. But hey, you also hear people that make it to 200 that have broken all the rules, including what they've done with their drinking and some of their other habits as well. When you hear the people on the weathercasters, when they're talking to people that make it to 100 or 100 plus, and they tell you that they have broken all the rules that you're supposed to live by and all in that space. But is it something that you find a lot of people, particularly our young folks, are even afraid to have those conversations, or are they more open to having those conversations because of the way the world is? And I think people are coming to the realization that there are no real guarantees as to how long you will be here, particularly when we see something as horrible as this pandemic that's been here over the last 3 years, and it took so many lives.
Yeah. Well, I think ideally, when people are young, when they, in their 20s and everything, that's ideally when they should really get the plan because they're so much more affordable. Right. But, they're not thinking about that, and so they don't think about it. So then when they get through to the 30s, well, then it gets a little bit more expensive, and yeah, they can afford it and everything, but it's going to have to be where their priorities lay, what they've experienced in life, where are they at with their finances and everything? I think that's going to have a lot of play in it, because they're like, well, I'm fine now. I've got a good job. I've got a good house. I'm doing fine. You know, a lot of them don't think, well, what if I had an accident? Right. You know, what would happen? Well, yeah, you've got some mortgage insurance and everything, but still that's going to put the hurting on the spouse, you know? So, but then, you know, when they get to their 40s, it gets more expensive. And that's when they really want to think about it and everything. And so I think a lot of people, when they get to that point, they're like, insurance was probably just for the rich. Right. I can't afford it, you know? And so now I think that I do hear a lot of commercials, you know, pushing life insurance and about how affordable it is and everything. So I think that's what we're going to have to do, is we're going to have to kind of get the tide turned a little bit, so everyone understands life insurance can be for everyone. You know, it just depends on what you want out of it and everything, you know. So like for my husband and I, we weren't really pushing for the, you know, the life insurance after the fact. We were more wanting just the income when we retire, you know. The life insurance protection on that was a bonus too. You know, the hospitalization on it, the cancer on it, the long-term facility, that was just a bonus, you know. But it's all included. So it's nice, you know. So I think things are going to have to change to, you know, it's life insurance is not for the wealthy, you know, and the best thing to do is thinking about when you're in your 20s, when you can make that you can make a payment and pay for the whole year and forget about it for a year, you know, because that's when your payments are going to be so low. It's going to be very worth it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely sounds like it'll be worth it and everything. As we're going to wind down, it's got just a few more minutes to go and everything. The other thing that I know a lot of people think about when they think about particularly Kansas and everything is they think about the music culture. And y'all definitely have a rich jazz culture as well as a rich, I think there's some pretty well-known gospel musicians and even some that came out of the country realm as well that were from that area. So I was just wondering, is that something that is an interest to you? Because after times when I think of Kansas, I definitely think about Kansas jazz and of course baseball there as well. But those are some of the other things that I think about. And of course, y'all have a pretty good football team there as well. But I was just wondering how much is that was in your own growth and development, and whether you pursued anything, whether it was at church or anything else in those musical spaces, because I do know that those are some of the things that I associate Kansas with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have in downtown Wichita, you know, they'll have some music festivals. You know, they'll have some bands come in. They'll have like the food trucks, you know, come around, and they'll have bands. So it's really nice and they're all local bands and everything. And you know, you can have any type of band. You can have metal. You can have jazz. You can have country. I mean, that's what's really cool about it, is because it's so diverse. Right. You know, and you know, they have like the art walk, which is like the last Friday of the month, every month, and you'll go down and look at all the art galleries. They'll have a lot of music playing, jazz playing, you know, while you're walking around, you know. And so yeah, it's pretty good for the culture and everything. I mean, we've got it for being, you know, Kansas. It doesn't only put you, you know, really high up on the list or anything, but we do have a lot of culture that you know, we really enjoy, you know. And then now that, you know, we're doing so well with the Chiefs, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, all of us have been diehards, you know, okay, maybe next year. And so when, you know, Mr. Mahone came around, I mean, he was our godsend, and he's just been wonderful. I mean, and he is truly, you know, he's very well known and everything, but he's so down to earth and his heart is in the right place. He's just a wonderful guy all around. So it makes it really great, you know, that he's doing fabulous in the team sport, but he's also very wholesome, you know, very family oriented, and he's doing right for the community, you know. So I think that's a very good asset to Kansas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. How important is it for, in your mind, for business owners and others to be involved in their community? You just mentioned that about Patrick Mahomes. I know that Shirley is very involved in the Virginia community, and I'm imagining that you are probably involved to some degree in your local community as well. So how important do you think it is for people that are in whatever their entrepreneurial space is to be involved in community engagement, and where do you find your own community engagement?
I think everybody really needs to be involved in their community. because, you know, in my little small town, I was on the city council. I ran for mayor. I was in on the issues and everything. And people don't realize everything that how much control a city has. Even the town my size, it's pretty small. They have a lot of control, and they can make a lot of decisions on what's going on. I mean, it affects everybody. It affects, you know, their water, their neighbors, the houses that they're building, their rentals. I mean, it affects all the community. And I think it's very important for people to be aware of how much control every town has. I mean, they have a lot of control. And so for the business people to get in there and start getting involved and start helping spread the word about, you know, this is what's going on and this is what's going on, I think it's really important, very important. So
that makes sense. When you ran for city council and ran for mayor, what were some of the issues that you were running on and everything? And is there any potential that you might be trying to do that again? I know that and I alluded to her earlier, but my mom actually ran for Secretary of State here in North Carolina, and she ran once, and I think that was enough of the political landscape for her and everything, because there were promises made, promises unkept, and definitely some other things that she saw that probably kept her from wanting to run again, even though she served on some various boards. But yeah, that was her one attempt at running for political office. And we have sometimes joke with her if she's going to run again, and she gives us that kind of like snide look, like, no, I don't think that's going to be happening. But just wondering what some of the key issues were and whether you will be possibly running again.
I'm pretty busy on what I'm doing right now with my insurance. You know, I'm building and everything, and I'm talking to a lot of people. So I don't see me getting back into it and everything. But the issues were that, you know, they were spending a lot of money on, you know, certain areas of town that really didn't need it, you know. So that's what I was getting into. And then I didn't feel like they were I didn't think they were handling the money correctly. You know, from being, I had accounting background and I have a buying background and everything. I felt like there's a little bit too much nepotism going on and everything. And so I felt like they needed to look at the cost and the quality, you know, not just supporting, you know, their friends, you know, and then building up in an area where I didn't really think it needed to be built up any higher than it was, because we are a small community, but we can pull in resources from other small communities, you know. And so we didn't have to be the biggest and best in that area. And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to be the biggest, the best, and in the area. And it was like, that costs a lot of money. And for a size of this town, you know, it was all it was doing. It was just increasing our taxes. And, you know, we moved to the small town because the big towns, their taxes were sky high, you know, because they had to support all these schools and everything else going on. The smaller towns, they're just taking care of their needs as well. We have a school system we share with other, you know, there's like 4 other little small towns that we share with. And so that was nice, you know, they have a lot of resources. And so they're doing fine, you know. And so we didn't really have to be spending a lot of money on our taxes, you know, just to support special interest of just a few people in town.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And here in Durham, we've actually been having some interest in politics, because we've had one city council person that has been accused of working with having city workers work on their campaign, and also maybe giving some certain promises to certain developers. So I think they're in the process of being censured and everything. And then with the whole back and forth, because, you know, a lot of times city councils are divided, sometimes along party lines, sometimes across different other lines, different camps that exist, because I don't think that this was around party lines. It was probably just the different camps, because I won't say that everybody that I'm referring to is under the Democratic ticket, but there were even some possible fisticuffs that were shared as well. So our mayor recently had a conversation that said that they needed to calm down and work toward the betterment of the city, and not maybe have these kind of like very intense arguments. And it was actually a woman politician that was involved and accused of having some of the fisticuffs going on and everything. So it'll be interesting to see what consequences happens with that, and if that even gets some national play. But it definitely was all over the local and I think some of the state news and everything. So definitely sometimes folks get too caught up in their political desires or whatever those are. And I don't know how it is in Kansas, but one of the things we've seen over here is a lot of people are impacted by the political action committees. And there are a number of those kind of groups that are always giving out the endorsements. And I'm sure that even when you ran, you had to maybe get the endorsement from the Sierra Club or some of these other endorsement groups, whether that was the Democratic women or the Republican women or whatever the various groups were. But I sometimes think that we get too caught up with those groups, and I sometimes think people do too much blind voting. But I don't know if that's your thoughts, but I think that maybe people get a nice little endorsement sheet and they vote according to what the endorsement sheet tells them to vote.
That's true. And they have to have the backing and everything. Yep. But you know, that happens everywhere in government. People don't realize it. I think it's coming to more awareness of people, you know,
Right.
but it's always happened, you know, and it's just one of those things. You can't get around it, you know.
You know,
So-
definitely can't get around it. What's one of the things that, and like I said, maybe one or two more questions, but what is one of the things that has surprised you about growing up there in Kansas that might surprise others? Because we are a global community, and I've mentioned some of the things that people think about when they think of Kansas. Definitely the Wizard of Oz, definitely some of the sports teams, definitely some of the other things that I have mentioned during the course, including the music and everything. But if somebody is listening to us and maybe they're from India or Australia, what is something about Kansas, and particularly your area of Kansas, that they might find surprising and that they might enjoy should they come to your part of the world to visit?
Well, each one of our little cities around us, you know, they have their own little niche, you know, and they're noted for it. But I think there's a lot of diversity in Kansas, and I don't think people realize it, you know. We have a mixture. We have a lot of Hispanic. We have a lot of Asians. We have a lot of African American. We have, you know, I think that's what really makes us great, you know, because we're kind of hidden, but we are very diverse. I mean, and it seems like we all get along, you know. I mean, we're the melting pot, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of scuttle about everything. I mean, I think that's something really to be proud of, because it's not their background that they have issues with. It's because of them personally. And I think that is really nice in this area, you know, because we're just like every other town. We have our crime and everything, but you know, it's because people are trying to better themselves and trying to get money, you know. So it's just down to the basics, you know. So, I mean, because out in like Western Kansas, we have a lot of feed lots and everything for like the cattle and everything. So we have like a high amount of Hispanics that like to work out there. And that's great, you know. Here in Wichita, I mean, I think I don't know what the population is, but I think it's probably pretty much even between a lot of different races. So, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, sounds like it. How important in your own various businesses has been your spiritual growth and everything along those lines? Because I do know that a number of folks that are part of the network are very much in tune to their religious beliefs, but they are also open to other people's religious beliefs, meaning that they are open to having the people of Hindu or Muslim faith get their voice being heard as well. But just in your own growth, how important has that connection to something beyond you and your immediate family, a higher power been?
Okay, my core is that I'm Christian, and in fact, I teach a Christian. I teach fifth graders every morning religion, and so you know, it's right there at my heart. You know, to me, it's God, family, and country. Those are my three. You know, my daughter is a master sergeant in the Air Force, you know, so I've got all three of them right there lined up together. And so, yes, religion is very big in this area, but it's not overwhelming, you know, but we do have Muslims, you know, we have every other kind of religion available. And I think that's another part of our diversity and everything. You know, in my community, it's more, you know, because I'm in a smaller community and everything, it's more Christian. You know, but you know, Wichita's like 3 miles down the road, and so I go there and I see a lot of different diverse. But Kansas as a whole, I do believe that there's a lot of religion here. You know, there's not very many atheists or anything, and I think that's great. I think that kind of helps with the diversity and with us all getting along and everything. We're loving our neighbors. So
yes, sounds like it. What did you say to your daughter when she wanted to go into the military? Because I do know the military can be rough sometimes to women. I do know that I've actually been part for a number of years of an effort to help our veterans. It's actually my friend Captain Newborn, and that is actually his name, not his ranking, because he never served in the military, but he is a veteran advocate, and he uses the Apollo structure, the Apollo that exists in New York, to do a talent competition, but also to bring awareness to veterans' rights and veterans' issues and everything. So we do know that veterans' issues have been very much important over the last several decades and everything. So I was just wondering, when your daughter said she wanted to join the military, what was your take and your husband's take, and what did y'all do to support her?
My husband was the one that, excuse me, that was quite the advocate for it. I thought she was crazy. It happened right about 9/11. So I was really worried about war, especially with her being a woman. But I did know with her being in the Air Force, she was going to be pulled away a little. She wasn't going to be as close to the action as possible, but she did. She has been in Germany and Qatar. And my son, he was also in Korea for a while. So it's been really different for us. But I've been very supportive of her. She's just been moving up the ranks. She's been doing wonderful. Every time I go visit her, I just see her blossom, and she's got so much respect from her peers. She's had to kick people out of the military. She's had to set them down and set them straight. And I think it was good that she had some really good core values that she learned from Kansas. Because like when I took her to boot camp, she had pink hair, and, she was wearing the little skinny tight jeans and everything. And I gave her them like that. And I'm like, good luck. And within 6 weeks of her, when she got out of her boot camp, she was a totally different person. Yes. And I went up to this tech sergeant and I'm like, I don't know what you did, but you didn't give me back my daughter. I think, And he just said, ma'am, he goes, all we did was perfect what you gave me. And I was just, whoa, but she was opening doors. She was saying, yes, ma'am. No, total different person. And I've gone up there. She was in South Dakota, and we were going to have plans for the afternoon, but she had to go take care of some, supervisor visits. And she was basically kicking a gal out of the Air Force. Right. She wasn't doing what she was told. She was smarting off. She was, I was just like, wow. And that put a lot of, wow. Then I went up she's in Alaska right now. So when I went to visit her last time, she was talking about how she had she was a couple layers up now. Mm-hmm. And so she'd already gone through 2 other sergeants trying to straighten this boy out. And he was from New York. And he would sit there and call his family back in New York every day and talk for 3 or 4 hours. And, the time difference was like 4 or 5 hours, And so she had to go take him for breakfast. And he worked 3rd shift. She took him to breakfast, and she just flat told him, what's your home life? And he's like, well, I've got, several younger brothers and sisters. And she's like, what are they going to do when I send you home because you failed? What are you going to do to them? And within a week, the sergeants below her called her up and said, I don't know what you did to this boy, but he's straight. I mean, he didn't know how to balance a checkbook. He didn't he didn't have a driver's license. He just rode a bike. He never went to the dorm. He was always out partying. I mean, and she turned him around just by an afternoon, breakfast, talking to him, just giving him a face of reality, So I was very proud of her.
It sounds like you're definitely proud of her and everything.
Oh, yeah. And she's going to retire in 2024, and she's already signed on for another year. So she likes it.
She likes the military and definitely is enjoying it. I know that I've got cousins that have definitely been in the military. One of them actually made it up to the rank of a lieutenant colonel and was actually working to make either further in the officer camp and everything, but I think that they are given a certain amount of times that they are allowed to go for the promotion, and if they don't get the promotion, then they are given out to the civilian world. So both he and his wife are now out in the whole notion of civilian work, and they're actually doing quite well in the civilian work from that knowledge that they got from the military. So
definitely looks great on the resume, and she's working on her master's right now. And so her husband's still in the military, and he's like about 5 or 6 years behind him. And so he wants to retire. And so her goal is just to move over to be a civilian job at a base, wherever he gets located. And she could do it because she's got QA and she's got supply chain, and she's got all that management material. So she's going to do well once, and even just not even getting her master's, she's still going to do well. She's still got her bachelor's underneath her. So
yeah, no doubt about it. And see, you thought that we would not be able to have an hour or an hour and a half conversation. You're much more interested in you were giving yourself credit for and all in that space. So like I said, we've definitely come to the end. And one of the things I get everybody to do at the end of the show is, as you've seen from the other past shows, is to tell folks how you can be reached in social media, and definitely with Shirley Luu and all in that space, as well as any message that you want to give to our listening audience. And there is a global listening audience, because one of the things that I try to do, is kind of one of my own personal missions, is have people express a message of positivity and hope that they would like to share for our global community and all that are watching and all in that space. So hope you enjoyed the conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Glimpse and everything, but definitely, like I said, you had much more to say than you thought you had to say. So definitely, it was a greater conversation than what you were expecting. But we just tried to bring out the positivity and the amazing things that you folks that are working with Shirley Luu are doing, and some of your own stories and narratives and all in that space. So if you can tell folks how they can reach you, and also any message of positivity and hope that you would like to share, and then I'll play the shorter Shirley Luu commercial and maybe one or two other commercials as we get out the door. But definitely, I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll have you come back. I know that Nathan and a couple of others have made multiple trips, so hopefully you'll get another chance to return in the not too distant future.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can be reached at Sharon Scroggins at ffsmail.com. I would highly advise anyone who is selling insurance to hook up with Shirley Luu. She's got a great training program. We need agents. There's a lot of, with us at the peak, of annuities and IULs, there's a lot of 401ks out there that need to be rolled over, and we need help. So I would highly advise you to go ahead and hook up with Shirley. She's phenomenal. For her being, the top 50 of the Forbes of the women in financials over 50, that is wonderful. And for her to take the special time to work with each one of her agents, regardless, that speaks mounds. She does a fabulous job, and you will definitely do well if you hook up with Shirley. She's wonderful. I can't speak highly enough of her. But contact me if you want to roll over your 401k. I'll definitely help you with it. And I'll make you a heck of a lot more money in your retirement than what you currently have.
Sounds great. If you have any message of positivity and hope that you want to give to our global community, I'm sure folks would love to hear that as well.
Well, just keep God, country, and family the way I look at it. You got to support every bit of it. We got a great country, and there's a lot of opportunities for everybody, regardless of who you are. All you have to do is put some elbow grease in it and keep talking to people and turning over every one of those rocks. You'll find something. I'm ashamed that it took me this long to get to insurance, because I have really grown, and I really truly enjoy insurance. I wish I would have done it a heck of a lot longer ago, but when in this community, aircraft is the best, paying job, but I get so much more satisfaction out of insurance. I love to help people. So,
yeah. And I can tell that you were helping people, whether you were working in the insurance field or now with Shirley Luu, but you definitely seem to have very much of a helping kind of spirit, and definitely what people would call a service type leader, and all in that space. So definitely I can tell that you are an amazing person, and hopefully I will get a chance to meet you, just like I'm hoping to meet Shirley at some point in person and all in that way, and definitely hope to see you back on one of these shows in the not too distant future. But right now we're going to get on out of here, and like I said, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and hope you have as well. But we're going to hear from Shirley Luu and some of the other folks that are sponsors of this particular network and everything. So definitely a great conversation, and look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem.
You take care.
Do say.
At Shirley Luu and Associates, powered by First Financial Security, our mission is to help all people achieve financial security and peace of mind.
My team and I are here to help you reach financial security tomorrow and for generations to come.
She is one of the most sincere and compassionate people that I will ever meet in my life. She sincerely wants to build a legacy where no young woman that she meets is left destitute, that they are able to be self-sufficient, to provide for a family in an emergency, to build for their future and for our future generations.
At Shirley Luu and Associates, we are changing the face of insurance and retirement plans. Our mission is to lead, empower, and grow. We are the home of tax-free retirement. We provide comprehensive planning for businesses, rollovers for retirees, and individual personal financial planning.
I'm a very people-oriented person. It's important for me to make sure my clients feel in a safe environment, make sure I feel in a safe environment, that I can trust the people that I'm working with. And I feel that here working with Shirley and my team. These people are more like family to me.
We believe entrepreneurship is a possibility for all walks of life.
Reach out to us. We would love to have a conversation to see how we can help.
The only trick you need to save time and money is to shop at Aldi. Aldi. Shop differently. Limitless length plus volume. Sensational from every angle. New Lash Sensational Sky High Mascara. Only from Maybelline, New York. Everything that touches your baby should be this comforting. Pamper Swaddlers. The #1 choice of hospitals is 2 times softer. All right, Trivago. Find me a hotel somewhere in Thailand where I can wake up with a view of the ocean. Awesome. The future. It's impossible to see. And when it's finally here, it might not be what you'd expect. It might just be better. Introducing Luxury Electric. Introducing Lucid Air. We're for those who love to discover, who don't need to travel to find something new, and who know when you spend less, you can discover even more at TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Smooth, velvety chocolate wrapped in precious gold. Ferrero Rocher.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.